starting to see a lot more guys who are coming out at 22. They're fourth year, fifth year running back guys. I wanted to talk about like Travion Henderson and Raheem Sanders in particular, because I think both of those guys were really steamed up to be part of the class. I think Travion Henderson might have been far and away the number one in this class if he had just come out and he chose to go back to school and compete with carries with another top 5 running back, which is like kind of crazy. So his paycheck must be pretty big. And then Raheem Sanders, another guy who was, I mean, he was rising up draft boards and mock drafts and things like that, had a really struggled a lot behind a not so great Arkansas offensive line, got hurt, and he decided to go back to school and then transfer. So what is your take on how the landscape in the NCAA is changing? Like what was Travion Henderson thinking? Like how is it in our Devy startups when we're looking at guys who are senior running backs? What is to differentiate them from like incoming freshmen that are super talented? Do we want to not hang on to guys for 6 years, so focus on older running backs and not younger running backs? Like, what do you see with the college landscape right now?
Yeah, I think, I mean, NIL obviously has a ton to do with it, as does the kind of wide open transfer portal landscape. I think Henderson in particular could have thought he was, kind of slowed down for a little bit of the season, came on at the end. But in his mind, maybe, a really strong senior season where he's healthy and really clicking on all cylinders could make him a first-round pick, maybe. I think Sanders needed to go back. I think he was too hurt and too bad and too big probably last season for that to be, putting his best foot forward for the NFL. But in general, I think we're going to see more 4-year guys. I don't know how I feel about the breakdown between, is that going to be the top of each class, or is that going to be kind of like the middle, the middle class of college running backs who go back. But I do think that, especially with running backs struggling to get second contracts in the NFL on a consistent basis, just because it's often not a great investment versus just refilling in the draft or, whatever the alternative is. I think part of it is, if you can go back to school and make, I don't know what they're making, $750,000, some random kid somewhere, rather than go to the NFL early and like quickly make $4 million and then be done. Like maybe you try to cash in college as long as you can, because you're not sure about your second contract prospects in the NFL. But I also think something I'd be looking out for, specifically more related to the transfer portal rules, is guys who stay at a group of 5 program and are like, a 1,000-yard rusher, all Sun Belt or whatever it is for, multiple years in a row. You kind of got to wonder why did he never jump ship and, end up at Kentucky, or why did he never transfer to Louisville, or, whatever it was? Like, why did he either not have those opportunities or not want to take them? Like I think increasingly it'll be a red flag for guys to just be a 4-year producer at a group of 5 program, rather than a guy who proves himself there and then takes a jump like Ray Davis did. I think is a decent model for how those guys might work it. He took kind of a winding road, but starting at Temple, working his way up to the SEC is a good way to prove to NFL evaluators that the jump in competition, or it at least limits the calibrating they have to do for the jump in competition that you're going to have to experience going from college to the NFL. If you're playing in the SEC, that's much smaller. Where if you're playing in Conference USA, evaluators have to have a lot more questions about how athletic is he really? How can he adjust to the speed of the game? So guys who just kind of stay there, Not that it necessarily says anything about their game, but I think it should be a little bit of a red flag going forward.
Or guys who start out at a Power Five and then transfer to a smaller school. That
Oh yeah,
kind of
definitely bad sign. Definitely a bad sign.
so. Looking over your rankings for Devy, we have Travion Henderson at number one, Omarion Hampton, who's part of the next wave with Quinshawn Judkins at number three, Ashton Jonty, CJ Baxter, Justice Haynes, Roderick Robinson, and then Ollie Gordon. So Ollie Gordon was probably the most steamed up out of everybody. Is there anything that differentiates him from the guys ahead of him, the seven guys that you have ahead of him? Um, and I know that you like Ollie Gordon. What does he need to do to kind of like plant himself in that top three?
Yeah, I like Ollie Gordon. I haven't studied his film. I've seen him play, but I haven't sat down and really focused on it. He is a little bit of from that bit of watching him. He strikes me as a little bit of a lumberer as well in the backfield. He's not super agile back there, which limits him some. And while he was incredibly efficient and was just like a chunk play machine, he also was a little bit he lagged a little bit behind his teammates in just like churning out positive outcomes on a down to down basis. So when he wasn't ripping off
Mm-hmm.
chunk plays, it was 2-3 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, which to be fair could just be a product of the kind of lumbering he was doing in the backfield. His offensive line also wasn't great. I think he led the country in rushing with an offensive line that PFF had rated as like 92nd in run blocking
Ooh.
grade. So they were not good. I also think he's a good pass catcher. I don't think he's like a weapon in the passing game like somebody like Genty is. And so I like Ollie Gordon. I don't currently view him as having like an incredible ceiling.
Okay.
But I'm very willing to have my opinion changed in 2024. That'd be cool to see because he's a good player.
And Devy rankings are the most fluid of
Oh
all
yeah.
of the rankings anyway. How about prospects for Trevor Etienne? He's going through some legal trouble. Granted, not as bad as Trey Hawley, who I wrote up right before the murder.
Did
I
he
was
murder
like,
someone?
yeah. So I was like huge on Trey Hawley, Louisiana State high school rushing leader for career. He was behind a couple guys at LSU, and I was like, in your Devy startups, go grab this guy because he's going to get his opportunity in the next couple years, and then he's going to like hit the ground running and boost himself into the uh, into the rookie drafts as like a very high. Like you're going to want him in your campus
Mm-hmm.
Canton leagues, and then he was charged with murder.
Jeez.
So I think Etienne is not quite in that same boat. He did get arrested. He's got some legal trouble, but Travis is his brother. He's got that kind of physical legacy. Do you see him like making some moves? Where are we looking at Trevor Etienne? Should we count on him for this season, or like try and package him up, send him off to somebody else, make him somebody else's problem, or just kind of sit on him until he makes the transition?
Yeah, I don't have a good take related to the like the off field stuff. That's always tough to navigate, and I think it kind of comes down to your level of risk tolerance or what you want to do with those assets. But like on the field, I think he's exciting. I'm not sure he's an awesome prospect. Like I kind of view him in the I don't know, second or third tier of kind of yearly prospects as maybe in the same mold as like this is not a player comp, but like a similar floor ceiling proposition as like a Tank Bigsby, where I think
Okay.
he definitely has talent and athletic ability and he's explosive out in space. I'm not completely convinced by his analytical profile so far. Um, Being at Georgia, assuming he ends up on the field and getting to play with a good team there, would presumably only help. But yeah, based on what he did at Florida early on, I'm he's exciting, but I'm not sure that he has more substance than excitement.
So let other people cash in on his name and kind of, because there's kind of a balance that you have to take between steam or consensus, or kind of like, what the narrative is out there versus what a player actually encompasses. And so you have a guy like Brendan Rice, who he's a good wide receiver, and his dad is Jerry, so he's going to get some opportunities that he wouldn't necessarily have gotten if he wasn't Jerry Rice's kid. Frank Gore Jr., smaller school guy, but wasn't terrible, and he's going at a better state than Gore Jr. Travis's little brother. Everybody wants to kind of like, oh, he's going to be the next one, and sweep him in there, and that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and I think with ETN, he's he's a Devy running back, and those are fairly volatile assets. It's not easy to tell how good a guy is going to be from the time he's a freshman or from the time he's a sophomore. So like, I think we have to approach a Devy asset like that with the knowledge that we're trying our best, but we don't really know that much about what kind of prospect this guy's going to look like until he actually declares. And even then, we're still trying to figure out how good he's going to be in the NFL. So we have very limited understanding of how good these guys are going to be. And so if there's extra uncertainty and risk introduced on top of that in the form of these like off-field issues, but that risk in the marketplace is offset by like name value that's sort of like keeping his price afloat. It seems like a fairly no-brainer move to me, or at least a low-risk move to just kind of pass that asset onto somebody else who's willing to be excited based on athletic traits and name value, and you just kind of rinse and repeat with an asset that doesn't have the extra baggage attached to it.
Right, right. Okay. Um, and again, the volatility of looking at Devy running backs and things like that. Would you say that guys who come in and produce as freshmen that maintain that production over their first 3 seasons have an advantage? And I'm speaking specifically of my favorite running back, University of California Bear, Jaden Ott. I've been watching him climb up rankings, and there's so little consensus on Devy rankings. So like, some people have him in the 50s, you have him in the 20s, but again, there's 100 programs out there, over 100 programs out there. He produces a freshman, he produces a true freshman, he produces a sophomore, and while I say he produced as a freshman, it's not like he didn't have bad games. But overall, the course of the season, he was like the number 2 running back in the Pac-12 as a freshman, behind Bucky Irving, I think, or at least he was up there. Sophomore season, at a certain point in the season, they were like, "Hey, we're going to have you run back some kicks." He takes the first one he ever returned to the house, but he's a guy who I think people are sleeping on a lot. And now he's going to make a transition out of the Pac-12, which is typically not a running back conference. It's more of a passing conference, into the ACC. What are your thoughts on Jaden Ott?
Yeah, I'm not I'm not married to my opinion of Jaden Ott. I have not studied his film either, but I do think he checks some of the boxes we want to see. Several of them actually. He should be like 5'11", 6 foot, 215-ish, 210-ish at the NFL. I think he's probably got 4.5, maybe a little bit better than that speed.
Even
And
4.5 is, I mean, that's perfect.
that's good. And like you said, he has been productive from the time he was a freshman in a Power 5 conference. He's caught a lot of passes. So he has these elements of like, okay, if we're, the pillars of running back evaluation, I think he satisfies those. He looks good. I'm worried that he's more like Sean Tucker, Keyshawn Vaughn level prospect than he is whatever the tier above that is.
Right.
Like these guys at these kind of, I mean, no shade to Berkeley, even though they rejected my law school application, but
Oh no.
uh, no shade to Berkeley, but they're not an elite football school. And I think these guys that are at these kind of like second, third tier programs, even at the Power Five level, I just want to see them be like really dominant rather than simply good and productive. Like I want to see Jaden Ott have like he doesn't need to be Brees Hall, but Brees Hall is an example of a guy who played at a program at a similar level, but was just so dominant that it was obvious that he'd be good. Almost like he was undeniably good at Iowa State. I don't see that from Jaden Ott, and so I wonder if he's a little bit more Jerome Ford, Chuba Hubbardy on the high end, which is absolutely not a bad thing. But yeah,
So
I feel like I want to see more.
let's say he enters the ACC as a junior this year and outpaces Omarion Hampton or some of the other ACC running backs that are out there. He'll cement a pretty steep rise. In so
Yeah.
go ahead, waste your draft picks on that. And
Well, if Jaden Ott is more productive this year than Omarion Hampton, and assuming Omarion Hampton is healthy and playing at a reasonably high level, I'll be very much in on Jaden Ott. That would be fantastic if he was, a 6', 215 guy who runs 4.48 and ran for 1,600 yards in the ACC. That would be beautiful.
and I can see it. I can see it. It's coming. There's definitely a difference between carrying the ball in the Pac-12 versus the ACC, and I'm here for it. He's right there in that tier for you with he's right there with Raheem Sanders. Yeah, I just like he's one of those guys that I root for on an outsized basis, just because he's
definitely a fun player. Like he's good in the open field. He's a long strider. Those guys are fun to watch. He looks like Eric Dickerson out there. He's a fun running back.
So do you have any guys on your radar in Devy that maybe people are sleeping on at this point?
People are sleeping on. I don't consume a ton of Devy content, so I'm not familiar with the landscape really or what consensus looks like. But let me find a guy who I think is good that doesn't seem super hyped. Caden Fegan at Illinois had a good freshman season. He's a big guy. I know Darius Taylor was a big name freshman, but I think Caden Fegan is kind of right there and was really good. Le'Veon Moss. This is one where I think I'm a little bit above consensus. Le'Veon Moss at Texas A&M, essentially, as far as I can tell, beat out a more highly touted player in Reuben Owens for that starting job and played well until I think he got hurt mid-season. But his box adjusted, team relative numbers looked really nice. So I think and he's got good size. I think Le'Veon Moss could be a good player. He's right behind Raheem Sanders in my rankings, based largely on the fact that Raheem Sanders stunk last year and seemed to be playing at a weight that was too heavy. So he needs to redeem himself. But Le'Veon Moss is right there for me with Phil Maffa. He's a little bit above Jaden Ott for me. Moss, I think, is a good player.
So speaking of Davis, and I sent you, I messaged you, talked to you on Twitter, however you want to put it, a couple months ago towards the end of the NCAA season. And one guy who's not in, he's not in the I always get the FCS, FBS thing.
Oh, FBS is what everybody watches. FCS is the next
FCS.
Yeah.
So essentially a Dylan Lobby type. He's going to be in the FCS, not going to be a whole lot of tape on him, but his name is Lan Larison, and he's going to be the starting running back for UC Davis. So keep that name in mind.
All right.
He's not available in Devy leagues. He's not but as far as some guy who can come in and wow people at the Senior Bowl or put up some combine numbers that make people go, "Oh, we never heard of this guy. He's gonna write up draft boards." Eastern Washington, Eastern Washington, Portland State, like that's the level that he's playing at. But he's destroying people.
Cooper Kupp went to Eastern Washington.
Yeah, yeah. There's a long legacy of Davis football players. I mean, Rich Martini, Raiders wide receiver in the 70s. Ken O'Brien, Jets quarterback. My boy Mike Wise, I don't have it up. He's somewhere here. Defensive end for the Raiders. JT O'Sullivan, the QB school. UC Davis legend. There's been a long legacy of when they were Division II non-scholarship, they were like pumping out NFL.
Damn.
It is the best. It's comprehensive. It's Devy. It's rookies. It's dynasty, and it's all sharp. So, and this cat too. Anything else that you want to say to the people of the Undroppables, the Dynasty Pulse, or the Fantasy Burn?
I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on. It was nice to meet you, Brendan. Yeah, check me out, nomoreparties.com. Get it while the getting's good.
Yeah. Again, thank you for coming on. Good luck in law school. I didn't really mean my joke when I emailed you and said I don't have to read your garbage takes anymore, but the world is getting another lawyer, so it's a lose-lose situation. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody else. I hope you win, and you guys have a good day. I'm going to cut it here.